Dear and highly respected souls, highly loved souls and followers of YouTube channel Golden Age. In front of us we have one beautiful source of light, and in physical form. We have here Sister Maureen from Brahma Kumaris Spiritual Center from United Kingdom. Thank you so much for your precious time, for your wisdom, for everything that you will share with the whole world.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and hello to everyone.
Before many of questions that I have, would you be kind to say something about yourself and this wonderful spiritual center, Brahma Kumaris?
Sure. So, as you know, my name is Maureen. I was born in the UK, but I think from early teenage years I was very much searching, wanting to find answers, knowing that there was more to life than all the external that I could see and experience. And this led me to practice meditation and but also want to do something of service to the world. I trained in speech therapy or speech pathology. But it was on the journey to visit the Findhorn community, which I'm sure many of you have heard of in the northeast of Scotland, that I stopped in Edinburgh with my husband, David, and it was there that we actually met the Brahma Kumaris. We went to an exhibition and we heard something about the teachings, met some of the people, and we felt very drawn by the vibrations, and we felt that there was something very good that we wanted to learn more about. So we came to London, learned more, and we really felt that this was a path that was very right for us. And we began to start a little centre, even then, quite soon from our home in Leeds in the north of England. And we also made our first trip to India. We met the BKs in the August, and we made our first trip to India in December. And that was very, very special. It really felt like coming home, to go to the headquarters of the spiritual university and also to meet the elder sisters who've been with the founder, Brahma Baba. One of them was in London, so I knew her well, but then I was meeting more in Mount Abu, and they were just such powerful spiritual women, powerful leaders. Most of them have passed on now, of course, but it was very special. This was in 1976. And then I was in Edinburgh when our centre started there for about 18 months. And then 1982, I moved to London. And then I was really in the centre, in the heart of everything, because this is our international coordinating office. And since then, of course, administration, all the things that you need to do, but very much teaching meditation, spiritual skills. And also I've been very involved in our outreach into various areas of the community, whether it's been in prisons, working with prison staff, with social workers, healthcare workers, because everybody needs spirituality in their life, and also to keep themselves sustained and refreshed, to continue with the very difficult and challenging work that they do. And I've also been involved in interreligious dialogue for many, many years, and so that's been a great interest. When you can bring together people or be with people of different faiths who really feel that spirituality is important, it really is a coming together, and it's a hope for the future. True spiritual friendship, I've found. And yes, so I've been continuing. I come here to the retreat centre where we are quite often, And I feel that it's been a wonderful spiritual journey that's ongoing, constant learning, and at the same time constantly serving. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful describing all those details. And you mentioned Brahma Baba, and please, because he's just next to you.
Right. Right.
Would you be kind to share something from his life, or something common between you and him? And
well, he's a very important figure. He first had a series of visions in the 1930s. He didn't understand them at the time, but gradually things became clearer. But there was a lot of opposition against the spiritual gatherings, the satsangs he was holding in his community, which was in Hyderabad, Sindh, in the north of India. And particularly because he wanted to empower women. He really felt that there was an imbalance that needed redressing, and he saw the future in women being spiritual leaders and teachers. And it was a community where women didn't really have a life of their own, and they were at the behest of their big elder brothers, their fathers, their husbands. So when the women became more empowered, the community rose up against him. They were, "What are you doing?" So there were a lot of difficulties, court cases, many things. And then he moved to Karachi, and many women actually left their homes to go and be with him. And this was a very big story. And he didn't tell them to, but they knew that they wanted a spiritual life. And so the first spiritual community of nearly 400 was formed, mostly women. And they lived together for 14 years. And this was like a laboratory for them to experiment with spirituality, for the teachings to become clearer, so that from there, from that foundation, they could go and serve in the world. And it was actually after the partition of India and Pakistan, because Karachi then became part of Pakistan, that they then moved into India. But of course there was a lot of bloodshed at that time, but they remained protected. Even the Muslim government of the day continued to protect them and look after them. Brahma Baba had total faith, and he knew that he was following the inspirations and the directions of God, of the Supreme, and it was his faith and total surrender that enabled everything to continue. He never thought of himself as a guru. We don't think of him as a guru, but he was an instrument for those divine teachings. And he really surrendered everything. He formed a trust of 12 young women, and he was very wealthy, a jeweler. He legally signed over all his wealth into the hands of these women. So he really did empower the women in a very major way. And since he passed on, there's always been women in the leading roles heading the spiritual university. And I was very lucky to be with Dadi Janki, who's been my mentor for 40 years. She passed on in 2020. So he really set a foundation that was so powerful. But he himself lived simply. He was a renunciate, total humility, and, as I say, always considered himself an instrument. And he was fearless. No matter what happened, he was fearless. He knew that God was going to take care of everything, and that's absolutely the way it worked. So although, as I say, he's not a guru, but we do feel him as like a presence and a father figure, as somebody who's, you know, we see his life as an example to follow. And when you say the similarity, well, I feel I'm still far apart from where he reached. But of course, we're all on the journey.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
When you mentioned visions that he had, would you share just one or two, just for people to get a glimpse into his enormous way of strong faith and pure heart?
Absolutely.
Because when I see the picture of him, I immediately, as I'm watching exactly that.
Yes, you're right. Well, the visions, he was very much a devotee, devout Hindu, although in the area where he grew up, he also served in the Sikh Gurdwara. There was Sufism, Shaivism, so he had many exposures. And it was when he was in Benares at one point that he had visions. And one vision was of a vision of great upheaval in the world, something of what we're seeing now. And then, and at first he said, it's too terrible, please God, stop this vision. You know, it was very fearsome. And then the next vision he saw was of little stars coming to the earth. And as they touched the earth, they turned into divine beings, virtuous, beautiful beings. And he knew that somehow, he didn't know how, he had to become an instrument to help bring that world of divinity about on the earth. And so that then became his lifelong journey. And even now he's serving in his angelic form.
Yes, yes, yes. We can feel that, especially here in this place, I think, yes.
Yeah.
During your spiritual journey and the spiritual path, you met many divine souls.
Yes.
Who gave you a huge blessings and enormous wave of inspiration?
Oh gosh, many actually. I'm very, very fortunate, really. I perhaps first should speak about Daddy Janki, who was in London at the time, and so I met her very early in my spiritual journey, in fact straight away. And she really used to push me forward, you know. If she saw that my spiritual efforts were not quite up to scratch, or I was not meditating enough, or she could feel that I wasn't cleansing myself enough inside, she would point things out to me. She'd give me encouragement. She'd explain to me what was the next step that I had to do. And I would always go to her if I had questions. So she was of tremendous inspiration. And she always told me that I was a soul who could come very close to God. And so that was a great inspiration. And when I first went to Mount Abu, there were two administrative heads at that time, and I came close to both of them actually, but one of them, as soon as she looked at me, and you know, we talk about this divine vision of drishti, looking at the soul, and I felt as if she recognized me, and that she was seeing not just my present, but she was seeing my future. And it gave me a glimpse into a future of service. I didn't have any details, but I knew that somehow there were very special things ahead of me. That was a great inspiration. And the other thing that when we would go, there would be, through another one of the elder sisters, divine messages that would come. And those messages were huge inspiration, telling me of how I would serve in the future, although I didn't understand it at that time. I can understand it a bit more now. And also very practical advice, because I just share one story. When I first moved to London, I was very new. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I made a lot of mistakes in the administration. I'd never worked in an office. I'd never, I had a lot to learn, let's put it that way. And when I went to Mount Abu, there was a divine message that said, there's nothing wrong. don't worry about anything. You're just a little bit innocent or naive, you know. That touched me very much. And then the next bit of the message was, and we have this praise of God, that God is like the innocent Lord, in the sense that you give God all your rubbish, you know, that you want to unburden yourself, and God gives you treasures. So it was the hand of the innocent Lord is on the head of his innocent children. Oh goodness, did that give me comfort? I can't even tell you. And it really made me feel it's okay. Keep going. Don't worry. God is looking after you. So there have been moments like that that have been very, very special.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the most significant and the most important thing that you have learned from Daddy Yankee?
From Daddy Yankee?
Yes.
Humility and dignity. I would say this. Humility is so important on the spiritual path, because with humility you continue to learn. And even if others challenge you at times, which happens, everybody, you know, it's not that everybody in a spiritual community is suddenly perfect, all a work in progress. So there are challenges. And of course you meet yourself. The challenges are a reflection of the things you still have to transform. And so I would always be aware of that. I would always take everything as a learning. And that's really helped me. So rather than reacting or hitting back at someone, I'd say, okay, what do I have to learn? And that I really learnt from Daddy. And also to keep your dignity in these challenging situations, because others want to, well, they don't consciously want to do it, but when people are challenging you, in effect, they want to lower your dignity. It's not conscious, but that's the impact. And if you keep your dignity, then it helps them to keep their dignity too. And I would watch Daddy in these kind of interactions, and I thought, okay, I need to learn from this. I need to learn this. And so human dignity is just so important.
And can we also say that the most significant part of the spiritual path actually is never endless learning?
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes. And through that never endless learning, you are cleaning away the layers that have accrued on the soul, whether it's your karmas, whether it's, you know, the things you've been influenced by. And the result of that is that as your soul is cleaned or purified, you can come closer to God. Yes. And that's the relationship that you nurture. Mm-hmm. And then, to whatever extent, God can then use you as an instrument.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here at the Brahma Kumaris, where we are right now, where this interview is recording, by thankfulness of all wonderful people here, one of the questions that I got also from your lectures, from the whole group, from the retreats, and sharing all the experiences, I just find out that one very powerful thing in our lives, and for the world, for the cosmos, for the God, is forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
Is the forgiveness one of the most powerful qualities of a soul and of a spiritual growth? And can you say a little bit more about it?
Yes. Forgiveness is very, very important, because otherwise I carry things with me that then become an obstacle for me in my spiritual progress and in life in general. Because forgiveness is very much, when we feel we can't forgive, it's because we feel deeply hurt by something. And that deep hurt, if it's penetrated us and we keep it alive by thinking about it and remembering it, it actually begins to influence all our other behaviors. And, you know, that can have a very negative effect on me. It's like, in effect, I'm living in the past. And as was mentioned very much in the gathering, it's important for myself, never mind the other person, but it's important for me to forgive so that I can move on. But of course, in the act of forgiving, you're also freeing the other person too. But of course, one part of it as well that's very important is self-forgiveness. Because sometimes we do things, we say things, excuse me, we may regret that, something made us react, something came up from the past. And it's important at that moment to realize, but then to be very kind to oneself and to very quickly forgive oneself and not allow myself to continue to be caught up in weak thoughts and negative thoughts about myself, because that puts a barrier between myself and God. And to remember that if somebody is negative, they're hurting about something. So that also brings out compassion in me, which helps to forgive and to keep myself free. And of course, we have a practice in Brahma Kumaris of giving good wishes and pure feelings. And I remember once somebody phoning me and telling me that somebody he knew had done something very bad to a friend of his. And he said to me, I know that we're taught to have good wishes and pure feelings, but I want to go and strangle them. He was so frustrated. So what do I do? How do I have good wishes and pure feelings? And so I stopped, connected, and then I just said, okay, what do you feel would be the best outcome for that person? So he thought and he said, well, that he would realize, that he'd apologize, that he'd change himself. I said, that's good wishes. Yes. That's enough. Wow. Just to want the best.
Such a simplicity, but such an enormous impact.
Yes, yes.
What do you think? What weakness our body, our soul, our mind, our faith, our connection with God?
What weakness in our body, our soul, and our faith? It disturbs our connection with God, or it's a weakness in our.
Yeah. What's
the weakness?
What's weakness of all of that aspects?
Right. Well, there's very much a deep connection between the soul and the body, and the soul and matter, actually. And we so often talk about consciousness and climate change and the connection between the two. But just coming in terms of my body, when I'm in a negative state of mind, and that means there may be negative feelings, maybe fear, maybe jealousy, maybe anger, greed, ego, possessiveness, all of those things, control. All of these things actually weaken the soul because it takes the soul away or really masks the original qualities of the soul, which are peace, love, purity, truth or wisdom, and happiness. So these are our original qualities, but when we get caught up in negativity, then the soul is weakened and we tend to get more negativity, absorb more negativity. And this has an impact on the body. And so then it actually has an impact on our health. And that's very thoroughly researched now as well, of the psychosomatic connection, etc. But it's really important because emotional stability will really help bring me to a good state of health. So the weakness starts with the soul, actually. And then, of course, part of that weakness is doubt. And, you may have faith in your spiritual path, faith in spiritual principles, faith in God. And then if somebody says something or something happens and a little thought, it only begins with a very small thought of doubt comes in your mind, it's like an infection that will grow. And then you begin to doubt everything. And so it's so important not to allow doubts to arise. That doesn't mean that we have blind faith or we don't question. We need to understand, we need to go into the depth of things so that then things sit with us properly. But doubt is a kind of way of, it actually takes us away from believing in the goodness of the world and the good possibility of goodness. So that's one thing, not to be deceived by anything. I think that's really key. And then, of course, it does interfere in our connection with God. And when you look at the way humanity is now, that connection has been largely, not by everyone, but by a majority, it's been lost. And that's why we are caught up in the negative states that we see in the world and the suffering that we see in the world. I had the opportunity to visit Ukraine a couple of months into the war with a group of religious leaders. And it was very moving because we didn't say we're going to make peace or we're just going to be with the people so that they know that there are people praying for them. And for all sides, every human life is valuable. When I came back, I was being interviewed and somebody asked me, look at what's happening, where is God in all this? So I said, yes, a good question, but I would ask the question, where is humanity in this? What have we done to bring ourselves to this point? You can't blame God. We are responsible. And now it's our connection with God that can help us to shift the whole situation in the world.
Thank you for such a wonderful work with the prayers, with visiting the places that really needs the most of the prayers.
Yes, really.
Yes.
Yes.
Next question is needs a short answer. Can you recommend the 3 amazing books that can easily heal and change people's lives in a direction of greater strength and happiness?
Okay. So the first book I'd recommend is a book by Sister Genti, who's been on this retreat, God's Healing Power. Very beautiful book. The little book that we were given just now, The Gift of Peace, many beautiful things in that. And then I actually recommend 2 more, if I can go to 4. There are 2 books by Daddy Janki, and these have become very beautiful reference books for me. One is called Wings of Soul, and the other is called Companion of God. And they have many, many profound teachings in these 2 books.
Wonderful. I think this will help a lot. This is helpful for many people on a spiritual path to get a recommendation from direct from a light source, direct from someone who reached some level of such a wonderful peacefulness and other original quality of the soul. Really, really.
Thank you so much. Very kind.
And for our last question, let's say 2 questions, but how you see the golden age of humanity?
Oh.
In behavior, in all concepts and aspects.
Okay. So I see it as a world where human beings are living totally in harmony with the natural world. And so there's no exploitation, there's no suffering, because there's total purity within the human soul and total soul awareness. And so it's a world where there's perfect harmony and perfect happiness. And also, it's a world of immortality, in the sense that, yes, bodies will last for so long, longer than today. We've probably 150 years maybe. But there isn't a concept of death, because every human being is aware that they are an eternal soul. And at the right time, they will decide it's time to leave this costume and go to the next costume. So there's no fear of death. And I find that very beautiful about that world. And, you know, there'll be so many professions that I'm sorry, you'll be out of a job. Police, lawyers, doctors, etc. Because it's a world of perfection. And that really is the world that we are moving towards. Wow. Thank you.
Wow, beautiful visions, beautiful seeing of the times that are actually coming.
Yes, I believe they are.
Some of the people, of the finest people, actually living right now that and showing us the way.
Yes.
And like you, like Sister Chanti here, really. And one last question is. If you have possibility to send a message to all of the followers and let's say all the people on a spiritual path that follows YouTube channel Golden Age, what would you say?
I would say be aware of your original state of being. The inner being is a being of peace, of love, wisdom, of purity, of joy. That is my real identity. Stay connected with the divine so that you become an instrument to serve all souls. Because in this world now, there's too many divisions. It's not the time to divide or to take sides, but it's the time to have love and compassion for every human being, every creature on this earth and the whole of our planet, our home. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.